I like Angry Birds. If you couldn't tell already. I've been a fan of this series ever since it started.
Fun fact, the thing that got me into this series was an ad on the TV for pistachios that was marketed with the birds. That was the first thing that not only showed me what the birds were, but also made me like the birds. Speaking of that pistachio commercial, that somewhat segues into the topic of this video. One of the most loved things about Angry Birds is the roster of its characters, and you can't really blame people for that. So, what better to do with these characters than to put them in animated shows? Thing is that they did that a couple of times actually, and I've been watching these series all the time. Bayek, I even own the Angry Birds Toons and Angry Birds Stella series on DVD, so I thought it'd be fun to rank every Angry Birds show made. Now to do this, we're gonna have to run down some rules. Well, rule 1. The show needs to have more than 3 episodes. There are a lot of random shows that Terraria has made that are only around 59 seconds long that last 3 episodes. It's kind of weird and I'd rather keep my sanity, so let's just pretend that those don't exist and move on. For rule number 2, shows animated by Terraria can change drastically, whether it be a new animation style or a new setting for the show. So, if a show changes enough things to where it could be considered its own show, then I will consider it its own different show. This means we'll be looking at the following shows. Angry Birds Toons 1 Seasons 1 through 3, Angry Birds Stella Seasons 1 through 2, Piggy Tales, Pigs at Work, Piggy Tales Act 3, Piggy Tales 4th Street, Angry Birds Blues, Birds on the Run, Makerspace Season 1, Slingshot Story Seasons 1 through 2, Slingshot Seasons 3 hasn't come out yet, Bubble Trouble Season 1, Birds on the Run Season 2, Makerspace Season 2, Summer Madness, and Bubble Trouble Season 2. This is gonna be a long one, boys, so better go ahead and grab your slingshot because we're slinging into this. I bet a lot of you were assuming that I was going to put Makerspace at the very bottom, right? It's universally hated, everyone hates it. What could be worse than that? Well, I can answer that with my own question. Tell me, how do you think I reacted when Rovio said they were going to be making a plush show? I bet half of you don't even remember this show, and frankly, it should stay that way. I set my expectations to the lowest I could, and it still tunneled through those expectations into the core of the f***ing earth. This show is an insult to everyone. It's an insult to kids because Rovio genuinely thought this was going to be enough to entertain children. It's an insult to adults because it's so insanely unfunny. It's an insult to Angry Birds because no matter what happens, this is going to be tied to that brand, and it is an insult to actual fans of the series because it takes the characters we like and turns them into annoying as hell stereotypes. Sure, Makerspace is terrible, but at least it was watchable. I had to take constant breaks from watching the show, and that is something I cannot apply to literally any other show I've watched making this ranking. Every single person here is just a bunch of bumbling idiots who are so bad at making jokes, it actually made me want to throw myself out of a window. The only character I somewhat enjoyed was Red, but we can't go one f***ing episode without making fun of him or having any agency in the situation they're in. Okay, I'm calming down now. Season 2 of this series is really, really bad. It has no aim, it has no direction, it's just terrible. And to be honest, I feel terrible for any child who has to be unfortunate enough to watch this god-awful series. Okay, so the fact that this is a season 2 implies that there's a season 1. So could that at least be decent? Or maybe just alright? Short answer, no. Long answer, this and the second season were the only 2 shows I had to stop and take breaks from. This show feels completely aimless even though there is a set goal. Like I said, Bomb and Chuck are complete idiots, so it feels like you have to muscle through to actually watch the show. What's worse is that this show was clearly made for babies, and I don't mean 3 to 7 year olds, I mean literal babies. It's just a bunch of noise and padding. This feels like a show that should only be about at most 25 minutes long, but this show lasts for 45 minutes. Good God! So what's the story? Well, a random girl drops her phone while going to school, which launches the birds from Angry Birds 2 into the real world. Well, I guess specifically Red, Bomb, and Chuck. There are so many plot holes in this show that I want to talk about, but really I can't to keep this brief. So here's just a little bit of it. 1. Why is this girl's phone so special? If this could happen on any phone, then how has this not happened before? And why does no one in this series grab them? I mean, they stand out no matter where you put them, and given the fact that the news is specifically putting out a warrant to find them, you'd think someone would just walk over to them and just grab them. They're not that small. I could really keep going, but I have to keep this brief. Everything I said about this show applies from the second season. I guess it was a little bit better because, well, I don't know, I guess I just didn't hate to watch it as much. It's like comparing a dog turd with sprinkles to a dog turd without sprinkles. One has something that makes it look better, but no matter what, it's still a dog turd. I bet you're surprised at how high this is. Well, high in quotation marks. Yeah, this show is pretty bad, but to be honest, I don't think it's as terrible as other shows made by Rovio. Yeah, the animation is very bad and cheap looking, but at least it doesn't hurt my soul to look at. The jokes are insanely unfunny, but where have you been? Angry Birds material has been unfunny for ages now. But let's be real, the worst thing about this show, without a doubt, is... Did that pig just dab? Yeah, that's the show's biggest issue in my opinion. See, there's something companies should have grasped by now, and it's that adding modern culture and more importantly, memes into your show is a recipe for disaster, and it can happen for multiple reasons. For one, did that actually just crack open a plucking egg? Anyways... Most corporations just can't grasp modern humor and culture, and this show just assumes all it has to do to make people love it is to reference modern stuff, just like drones, Alexas, and VR. In other words, this show was doomed from the start, and yet this actually could have worked. A show where the birds and the pigs work in an office space is a funny concept. Ugh, if only there was a way to make this better where they just made a completely different animation style. Either way, this stands as a cautionary tale of what not to do when making a cartoon. If you were to ask me which show I found the most boring while watching this ranking, I would easily say it was Piggy's Act 3. Piggy's Act 3 was a slog to get through. I have to ask, who would actually like this? Kids would find this show insanely boring, and adults aren't gonna get anything out of this. It's really, really boring, and I'd rather watch anything else. I genuinely can't think of a single thing about this show that I would call good. I mean, what's in this show? Nothing? Then what is there to talk about? Oh, nothing! I mean, seriously, what else can I say about this show? It was boring, unoriginal. I would never want to watch this again. This is what comes after the first two Piggy tales? Embarrassing. After the awfulness that was third act, I was not hopeful for 4th Street. But you know what? I was pleasantly surprised by its quality. I mean, not high quality, but it was something at least. Piggy's 4th Street and Piggy's 3rd Act should have been on the same level of awfulness, but 4th Street managed to beat out 3rd Act. 4th Street is animated a lot better than 3rd Act, even having some really well animated montages, especially in Act 3, but the problems that 3rd Act struggled with still applies to 4th Street. It's boring and mostly unfunny, but it was still easier to watch, and I think it's mostly because of the location. 3rd Act was stuck to one location, the stage. Sure, in real life that could be changed to anything, but in an animated show, it's kinda just the same thing over and over again. Meanwhile, 4th Street was more varied being in a city. Episodes could change shots from going to a basketball court, to changing lights on the dimly lit streets, to cops and robbers chase. Overall, if you have to watch a movie designed to Piggy Tales, 4th Street is definitely the way to go. But then again, don't.
Birds on the Run was a god-awful show for babies, then Angry Birds Bubble Trouble Season 1 is a fairly decent show for babies. It's kinda like Angry Birds Toons in the sense that it doesn't actually have that much of a story, just a bunch of scenarios the birds are put in. Is it funny? Well, no, but this show wasn't meant for older people. More just for babies. One thing I can say about the show is that it is very pretty to look at. It feels like you're looking at a picture book. The skies and the trees are all so pretty and amped up during the nighttime sequences. Another thing I have to give credit to this show for is that it has some really fun plots. I liked a lot of the ideas that they go with in this show, like a wishing well episode or one where the birds are trying to face their fears to get their soccer ball back. It fits perfectly for the theme of the show, being all about that childhood wonder, you know. Like a dream. Like a blast from a dream. Get it? Get it? All in all, it might not be all too interesting for adults, but if you want something to put on for your kid, I'd give this one a shot. Pretty much everything I said about Season 1 applies to this season as well. But there are some things that make it special, that being the pigs go into the pig city. No, not that pig city. It adds a lot more to the episodes since you can do stuff like the birds getting new hobbies or getting jobs, but then again, this show is for babies. If you don't like the first season, then you won't get anything out of this. But either way, given all the stuff that Rovio has put out recently, I feel like this is actually a fairly good show to put on, or at least give a chance. Hey, so while making this video, I realized I didn't have actually any way to record footage for this next show. So instead of just showing the show, I'm just gonna show some Terraria footage instead.
Madness is the best way to describe this show. It is crazy. Even in the first episodes, things are just off the walls bonkers. It does things that I would normally hate, like featuring an annoying main character, and the art style is kinda off to me, but for some reason, I didn't mind these things. This is probably the best time to mention this, but I have a system for these shows. I like to call it the Chuck test. Chuck is typically a dummy with a good heart. A good show would be able to do both of these things perfectly while keeping Chuck a funny guy, but a bad show would just see him be an idiot with no redeeming qualities. Summer Madness has a Chuck that tends to be more dumb. However, he is a lot more funnier than other Chucks, so that makes him a lot more bearable to watch. So in other words, if you have Netflix and you like Angry Birds, there's no real reason to not try this show out. I mean, yeah, if you don't like the animation style, fair enough, but I actually managed to find it fairly enjoyable. How did this not suck? I don't know what happened between seasons, but the jump in quality is actually staggering. This was genuinely one of the better shows I saw while making this video. I mean, it takes place in the same location and has the same plot, but for some reason it didn't suck. How is that possible? Huh. I guess I should go about what I liked about the show. It was nowhere near as unfunny as the first show, and also, more importantly, it doesn't look as abhorrently bad as the original did. I guess the animation style can really change how good a show can be. It was able to use modern equipment without making it seem outdated, like, that in and of itself is impressive. Out of all the shows that I watched while making this ranking, this was actually one of the biggest jumps in quality I saw. To me, anyway. I'm pretty sure a lot of people might still find this show very, very outdated. But you know what? After all the crap I had to sift through, I'm just glad I managed to find a show not as bad as the others I watched.
To be honest, I didn't have high hopes for this one, but color me surprised, this was actually pretty good. To be honest, the animation style of this show put me off for a long time, but I actually found myself really liking this show. All the characters in the show were pretty fun to watch, and it actually managed to pull off having/using phones. It's very meta, and they somehow managed to pull that off too. This is one of the few times in the show where I looked at the time bar and I was happy there is more. At the time of writing this, Season 3 has only released 4 to 5 episodes, but I haven't watched any of them yet. I've been working on this video. But you know what? Given the fact that they're adding both Matilda and Terran, that could lead to some really funny moments too. Maybe this soon they'll be able to make a Season 4 and have every other character made. Well, either way, if you like Angry Birds Toons, you might get a kick out of this show.
Quoi?
This was a surprise to me, given it was made around the time Piggy's third act was made, but I actually found myself really liking this show. See, the blues does something a lot of these shows didn't attempt to do, that being funny. Yeah, I actually thought this show was pretty funny. The blues were always able to get at least a chuckle out of me. The animation was surprisingly decent too. Nothing mind-blowing, but being the first and what I can tell only CGI show that used the movie designed birds like this, I actually thought it was pretty good. I also liked the hatchlings too. I know there are a lot of people who hate the hatchlings, but personally I never saw it. They're just cute little scringly dinglies and they work off the blues very well. The mischievous blues tied to the happy-go-lucky hatchlings works very well here. So to be honest, maybe you should give this show a chance.
No matter what Rovio could have tried, no Piggy series could ever reach the awesome visuals and more importantly, comedy the original series had. First of all, it's a delight to look at. This animation style was just the perfect way to go with this series. And like I said, the series is really funny. The pigs get into all sorts of hijinks, from trying to get another pig to stop snoring, to building structures that end up collapsing because they're using the blocks that they're using from the bottom to reach to the top. The pigs are always fun to watch. The question for me was, which was better? Was the first season or the second season better than the other? It was tough, but I ended up going with Piggy's Pigs at Work. I'm not sure why, but I like this series a lot more than the original. I noticed it had a lot more interesting visuals given the fact it was put into a construction site. I also found the plots to be more enjoyable than the first, mainly coming from how the pigs try to get their work done, but their stupidity always getting in the way. Again, I have to praise the claymation style they went for. It really brings the pigs to life and makes this series feel alive in a way. Angry Birds Stella is without a doubt the best story Rovio ever told. I think Angry Birds Stella is what got me into wanting to write stories for this series. It showed me that these characters could be taken more seriously. I just have to say, they nearly got everything right on this. The story, the visuals, the characters, excluding you. This show was perfect and amazing to revisit. The CGI they went with in this series was stellar and would pave the road for other shows to follow. Angry Birds Stella is about Stella going on adventures with her friends until one of her friends, Gale, was corrupted by the power she gained from finding her crown, which allows her to control the pigs. And if that wasn't bad enough for the Stella and the rest, she's on the hunt for the golden egg. And unfortunately in season 2, she gets it. The thing about the golden egg is when you smack it against anything, it will turn anything into gold, but at the cost of turning something else into stone. So to save Golden Island, Stella and her friends have to get that golden egg before it's too late. This series really is just amazing. A masterclass in telling an amazing story without saying a single word. The peak of what Rovio ever did. Well, except for Angry Birds Tunes. Come on, you knew this was gonna be here. The moment you clicked on this video, you knew darn well which one was going to be at the very top, right? What can I say about this show that hasn't already been said? It's funny, it's charming, it's beautifully animated, and it was the perfect way to launch the Toons app itself. Rest in peace. Even the episodes which are heavily scrutinized like The Miracle of Life are still insanely hilarious, and the characters? Phenomenal. Really well executed. Red is easily my favorite. His fury against the smallest things is always fun to watch. They even did the pigs justice with them having plenty of great episodes to watch also. In other words, Rovio struck gold with their first series. Man, they really peaked here. This is where they peaked. Their first show they ever made, and this is where they peaked. They made 14 more cartoons after this, and this is the only time when they hit their ultimate peak. That's depressing. It's a shame that Rovio can't seem to do anything right anymore. I've always loved Angry Birds. I will continue to love Angry Birds, but being kind of honest, it kind of hurts when Rovio makes bad decisions. Recently, Rovio was bought out by Sega, and while a large chunk of me is really nervous about that, what with Sega's own skeletons in their closet, a bit of me is hopeful that maybe one day, while they may not be able to return to the pure gold that they used to strike, they could at least still be, decent. Or good. And you know what? Given Bubble Trouble 2 and Slingshot Stories Season 3 being at least decent, maybe there is hope for the series again. If I were to rank every show with their seasons and everything, it would go from the following: Birds on the Run, Bubble Trouble, Makerspace, Summer Madness, Piggy Tales, Slingshot Stories, The Blues, Stella, and finally Angry Birds Tunes.
Merry Christmas and have a Happy New Year, everyone. I'll see you later. Also, if any of you mention birds on the run near me again, I will break you.